What's up, guys? Andrew Briscoe here with Keller Williams Elite, and today we're going to be continuing talking about the 2021 housing market. Now, the last couple weeks we talked about lumber prices, why they're so high, and how that's affecting the market, as well as interest rates and why they're so low. And this week we're going to be talking about something really interesting as well, which is the CARES Act mortgage forbearance option that people have been taking advantage of since COVID happened in 2020. Now, a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen when this forbearance period ends and people have to start making their mortgage payments again. Now, I've seen things on both ends of the pendulum, from people saying that that's going to cause a burst of this bubble like back in 2008. And I've seen people that have said that this is just the beginning of these home prices rising that we're seeing now, and that they're just going to continue to get higher and the market's going to stay stable for a while. But before we start talking about the forbearance and what that is and how it's affecting the market, I want to give a quick little history lesson. So back in the early 2000s, lenders started getting extremely loose with their rules and regulations of how they pre-approve people for a mortgage. Now, this is what they called no-doc loans, or what you might know them as subprime loans, that led to the financial crisis of 2008. And basically what this meant is that people were able to get loans for properties that they really couldn't afford. These lenders were not properly qualifying candidates for loans, and pretty much anybody could walk in and get approved for a mortgage on a home. Now, as this started happening and more lenders started loaning more money to more people, investors started investing in the mortgage industry. Now, how they were doing this is companies would buy up thousands of single-family mortgages and bunch them together as an investment, and investors would invest in these, and they were labeled as relatively safe and high return investments to these investors. As the demand for these, what looked like relatively good investments for investors, went up, lenders started getting even looser and looser with the regulations and rules of how they pre-approve people for loans. Now, the way that these subprime loans worked is that at the beginning of the amortization schedule, the payments were relatively low and the borrowers could somewhat afford the payments. What happened is they were on adjustable rate mortgages, so the interest rates would change and increase, and what would happen is that the borrowers eventually couldn't afford the payments anymore, and they would actually become upside down, as you call it, on their mortgage, where the payments they were making didn't even keep up with the interest rates getting higher. This was the main catalyst and primary cause to the financial crisis of 2008. Now, there were a lot of other things that went on, but basically a lot of investors invested a lot of money into these mortgages packaged together as safe, high return investments. And when borrowers could not afford their payments anymore, they were foreclosed on, and a lot of big lending companies and banks started to file for bankruptcy. Now, fast forward to today, a lot of people are concerned that this same thing is going to happen when this forbearance is lifted and people have to start making their payments again. But will this actually cause another housing crisis? Now, here are a few of the biggest reasons why analysts don't necessarily think now that we're going to see a huge dip in home prices when this forbearance period ends. Now, the first reason is that a lot of people that entered into forbearance didn't actually necessarily need to. A lot of people were just unsure of what was going to happen during COVID, and they didn't know if they were going to keep their job or lose their job. And so they opted into forbearance, and instead of making those mortgage payments, they just saved that money. And whenever they have to start making their payments again, most of them have been able to. The second reason is that lenders do not want to foreclose on homeowners. They learned their lesson in 2008 that they are not in the business of investing in real estate. Most lenders and banks are being extremely workable with people coming out of forbearance and working out options for them to be able to start catching up on their payments and get caught up from the time that they were in forbearance. And the last reason is that the government is actually doing a lot to prevent us from having another housing or financial crisis like we saw in 2008. The forbearance aid option option has now been extended to September of 2021, and people that entered into forbearance prior to certain dates actually can file for another 3 to 6 months of extension for forbearance, depending on what type of loan type they have on their home. You can find all of the details of those dates and information online. And on top of extending the forbearance period, they've actually also made it to where lenders and banks cannot require people to pay a lump sum amount of the payments that they missed. They're making it to where lenders are being extremely workable, and those payments are tagged on to the end of your amortization schedule for your loan. Of course, yes, there are going to be people that once this forbearance period is over, they won't be able to make their payments and won't be able to work something out with their lender, and they potentially will be foreclosed on. But for the most part, lenders don't want to foreclose on your home. You're extremely protected in this forbearance period, and most likely you're going to be able to work something out with your lender or your mortgage provider so that you don't have to be foreclosed on. Now, with all of this put together, this is why what we're seeing right now is so very different than what we saw back in 2008 that caused the financial crisis. So anyway, guys, I hope that this answered some of your questions and cleared up the differences between what we saw that led to the financial crisis and housing crisis in 2008 compared to what we're seeing in the market today in 2021. As always, if you have any other questions about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, shoot me a DM, reach out. I would be glad to help you out.